Good morning. Today I want to talk to you about the book of Ruth. The book of Ruth, excuse me, I'm losing my voice this week. The story of Ruth occurred during the time of Judges. It was a turbulent time in Israel. They were going through a cycle of disobedience, defeat, despair, deliverance. Judges 21:25 said, "In those days Israel had no king. Everyone did as he saw fit." One of the things I like about the book of Ruth, it told me about a concept called hased, and that's in Hebrew. I think that's how you pronounce it according to what I looked up. It's he said, just in English, Hesed. It means loyalty, goodness, kindness, loving kindness, devotion, faithfulness, favor, mercy, unchanging love, going above and beyond what is expected. Ruth's hasad toward Naomi, Boaz hasad toward Ruth and Naomi, and God's hased toward us. As you know from the story, if you're not familiar, go back and read the book of Ruth. It's a wonderful story. There was a famine in the land. And Elimelech, Naomi, and their two sons, Mahlon and Chilion, left Bethlehem and they went to Moab, which was an interesting choice considering that Israel and Moab were enemies. The family lived in Moab for 10 years. But not long after arriving in Moab, Elimelech died. And Mahlon married Ruth, and Chilion married Oprah. Now, after a while, both Mahlon and Chilion died. Now, all three of the ladies were now widows. They were destitute and without hope because widows had no social standing and no way to provide for themselves financially. Naomi decided to go back to Bethlehem where she had family and she knew things. And she encouraged both Ruth and Oprah to stay in Moab and remarry so they could continue to have their life there. And Oprah did return home. But Ruth chose to stay with Naomi. And here we find Hesed in her. In Ruth 1:16-17 says, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me." Forgive me, my throat's not good this week. It's a story of a Moabite woman who forsakes her pagan heritage in order to cling to the people of Israel and to the God of Israel to be with Naomi, her mother-in-law. It would have been much easier, more convenient for Ruth to stay home in the land of her birth among her own people where she knew everything. But she chose instead to extend Hased to her mother-in-law Naomi. She chose to go beyond what was expected. She chose loyalty, devotion, faithfulness, and unchanging love. In those days, they had to honor widows. Psalm 68:5 says, "Learn to do what is right, promote justice, give the oppressed reason to celebrate, take up the cause of the orphan, defend the rights of the widows." God made it clear they were to protect the widows. They had no husband to do it for them and no way to gain employment and to live. They couldn't own land. But it was the men who were charged to do this, not the women. So the book of Ruth is about a woman who did this. So that tells you how special Ruth was and that it was included in God's word of the Bible. Naomi and Ruth arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest, about late April, early May. And Ruth went to work gleaning in the fields, Boaz's fields. And here we find his hased to them. Now, gleaning is the act of collecting leftover crops in the corners of fields. In fact, in Deuteronomy and Leviticus, God told the farmers to leave the edges of the fields so they could be harvested and gleaned by the stranger, the poor, and those passing through. They were to leave some to be gleaned. And they went to Boaz's fields, and Ruth went to work gleaning so they could eat. Because of her faithfulness in time of a national faithfulness, there wasn't very much faith nationally. God rewarded her. She gave up her pagan life, came to serve Naomi's God, to be with Naomi and protect her. He gave her a new husband, Boaz, a son, Obed, and a privileged position in the lineage of David and Jesus. She became the grandmother of David. The author of the book of Ruth is unknown. We don't really know who wrote it. You see, Moab was the name of an ancient Levantine kingdom whose territory today is located in the modern state of what we call Jordan. The land is mountainous and lies along much of the eastern shore of the Dead Sea. And the Moabite women were considered trouble in the Hebrew Bible. They were both foreigner and female. They were pagans, and they worshiped a god called Chemosh. So Ruth was a very unlikely hero in Jewish history. But clearly she was a hero of this story and exhibited several important qualities valued in the Bible because she was included in it. Naomi and Ruth revived, at the beginning of the barley season, as I said. And to eat, Ruth goes to work gleaning in the fields. And Ruth 2:8-9, Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with my servant girls. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the girls. I have told the men not to touch you, and wherever you're thirsty, go get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." Boaz was practicing a side to her, giving her kindness. He didn't have to. She was a Moabite. She was looked upon with suspicion and even hatred from the people. But Boaz chose kindness to her. It would have been a lot easier for him if she just would have moved on to the next field. He just could have wiped his hands away from her and not had to worry about her. Out of sight, out of mind. Don't get involved. We often do that today. We don't want to get involved. But Boaz chose instead Hesed to Ruth. He chose to be gone beyond what was expected of him. He chose goodness, kindness, faithfulness, favor, and mercy. Something that we need to do in this world. We need to get involved. When we stand by and do nothing, that's a decision. There's that old saying that for evil to prosper, the only thing that has to happen is good men and women stand by and do nothing. We need to be involved in this world, in our children's lives. We need to be involved in their school. We need to be involved in the community. I learned another term in this book, which is Goel, Goel, which means redeemer or reclaimer. It's a next of kin according to ancient Hebrew custom, and it gave you certain family rights and duties, including avenging a murdered kinsman and redemption of the property of a person or person in debt or who was helpless. So Boaz's Hesed toward Ruth would go deeper still, and he would add loyalty, devotion, and unchanging love by becoming her Goel, her kinsman redeemer. The Goel's job was to redeem something, usually property that had been lost or sold. There were 3 conditions to be a Goel. To be qualified, you had to be a blood relative. You had to be able. You had to possess the resources necessary to pay the redemptive price. And you had to be willing. The role was completely voluntary. When Boaz became Goel, he redeemed both of Naomi's land and people, Naomi and Ruth. He didn't have to do any of it, but he chose once again to go beyond the expected. He chose Hesed. The story of Ruth is a human love story, but the Hesed found there points to something beyond. It points to the eternal love that God had for us. God's consistent, ever faithful, relentless, lavish attention and unrestrained love that he has for us. His agape love. Jesus redeemed each one of us. He didn't have to. He showed Hesed in relationship to us as God our Father. He showed that we're related to God because he redeemed us when we were lost. Jesus was willing. In 1 Corinthians 6:20, it says, "You were bought at a price," the price that Jesus paid. Ephesians 1:7 says, "In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins according with the riches of God's grace." Hebrews 9:12 said, "He did not enter by means of the blood of goats and calves as he did in the old days for sin offerings, but he entered the most holy place once for all by his own blood, having obtained eternal redemption. 1 Peter 1:18-19 says, "For you know that it was not with perishable things such as silver or gold that we were redeemed from the empty way of life handed down to us from our forefathers, but with the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect." As our Creator and brother, Jesus was the only one who was qualified and had the resources necessary for our redemption. And he had to be willing. We know he was willing. We know what he went through in the Garden of Gethsemane. The crown of thorns, the beating, the scouring, the trial, trumped up charges, the nails driven through his hands and feet. He willingly went to that to redeem you and me. John 10:11 says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep." Jesus laid down his life and we were redeemed. Ruth showed love and kindness, even risking her own life by going with her mother-in-law. Jesus did give his life in showing his love for us. This world needs kindness and love. We need to show Hassad to all. Kindness between people. What a concept God has given us. Kindness between people. Wow. Now, if we could just only implement that in this world, if we could have kindness between people in this world, we might be living the way Jesus wants us to. And what a world we would have. Go forth today. I want to challenge you this week. Be kind. Practice Hassad to somebody you don't know. Look each day for somebody to be kind to bring a smile to their face. For this world surely needs a kindness. And God has given us example. God bless.